We started. Are you going? Are you ready? It's 6:30, so if we could have the candidates join us up here, we will get started. So we have some enjoyment left at the end of the evening for this beautiful weather. I'm Paula Lewison. I'm with the League of Women Voters. I'm a past president, member of the board of directors, and we're delighted to provide forums to educate voters and give candidates an opportunity to interact with voters. Really, this event is an important step to making a decision for the November 5 election. There are dates that I'll talk about later, but I believe absentee ballots will be mailed out on September 26th, provided there's no delays with Supreme Court's appeals on who's on the ballot. The League is delighted to work with the Ottawa County Bar Association on this event. In particular, Tessa Muir, president of the bar, who has not yet joined us this evening, but I think she's on her way from Grand Rapids at this time. We will vet questions on the cards that anyone has, and if you raise your hand or raise the card, somebody from the League will come around and gather it. We do have quite a few questions. We don't know if we'll make them through all the questions we already had submitted, but we will do our best, and the candidates will do their best to answer them. The candidates have not been given the questions in advance. We solicit through our website, and the bar solicited through their website and members. The format for this is established by the League of Women Voters, Holland area, and was received, reviewed, and agreed to by both candidates in advance of the forum. Before we go over the rules for the forum, a few housekeeping items. I ask everyone to please turn off their cell phones and other electronic devices. No cameras or recordings are permitted other than those authorized by the League. The program will be recorded and available for viewing in a few days at lwvholland.org and our YouTube channel. The Ottawa County Bar Association will also post it on their website when we deliver that to them. The video is property of the League of Women Voters, and no other video clips or audio clips may be copied, edited, or used for any political advertising or other purposes. The video will also be available, possibly, and we will send it to the candidates. So if you have a campaign website, you're welcome to post that link. This forum is for probate judge, a non-partisan position with the Ottawa County Courts. Probate court is a court that hears matters for. I should have the current judge talk about this, but I thought I'd give the audience an idea. Civil commitments, I believe that's the most common case based on the statistics. Estates and trusts, guardianships, conservators, and other civil matters, including drainage district appeals to review apportionment and the assessment between property owners. I don't know how many of those there are, but occasionally I'm sure there are. The current probate judge, Fine, is retiring and leaving an open position to be filled by the newly elected judge. Derek Dalman and Michael Zitta are the two candidates vying for this judicial position. Each candidate will have the opportunity to make an opening statement not to exceed 3 minutes. Candidates will speak in alphabetical order first and rotate the order thereafter. Timekeeper, Tina Pollock, will hold up a card, and that's in front of you, to indicate 30 seconds remaining for your time. And then when the time is up, there's a stop sign too. When the time is up, the candidate may only finish their sentence. So we're not going to cut you off mid-sentence.
That might change us a little.
A lot of ands there to continue on sentences. Following opening statements, the candidates will be answering questions submitted by the public. Candidates may not make personal attacks or comments about other candidates, such attempts will be cut short. Our moderator has control over that. The moderator, Barb Kraft, manages the forum and has a right to close discussion on a question. Each candidate will have up to 1.5 minutes to respond to a question. We will rotate the first person to answer the question. So it will go back and forth, so you're not always given, one candidate's not given more time than the other to think about the answer through the course of the evening. And then there will be a opportunity at the end for candidates to provide a 3-minute closing statement to summarize their positions. Please note, all questions will be directed to all candidates. No questions will be directed to individual candidates. The League of Women Voters provides this forum as an opportunity for candidates to express their views related to their candidacy. Statements expressed by the candidates are not endorsed or opposed by the League. Also, the League of Women Voters does not certify any candidate responses to the questions as accurate. Voters are encouraged to fact-check information shared at the forum. Now I'm going to turn this forum over to Barb Kraft, our moderator, who's from Muskegon County, so she has no skin in the game. She is not going to be voting for anybody in this county. She's had a long legal career as an attorney in private practice in Grand Rapids and is director of the Legal Studies program at Davenport University. Please welcome Barbara to begin this forum. Barb?
If I could just take a moment and say, I am very heartened by the turnout this evening. Our American system of jurisprudence is an absolute bedrock for our society and the envy of the world. The opportunity that we have as citizens to participate by electing those who will administer our courts and rule on our cases is an incredible privilege. So the fact that you're here is a real testament to the fact that you're taking this seriously, giving yourself an opportunity to learn about the candidates and to cast your vote in a way that reflects some knowledge and some thought and some research. So I applaud you for coming, and I'm sure the candidates do as well. So as a longstanding member of the bar, and out of respect for the Ottawa County future probate court judge, and may I just acknowledge the service of the current Ottawa County probate court judge who is here this evening, congratulate you on your retirement, and thank you for your many, many years of service. As you heard when Paul explained the rules, we're having opening comments, and we'll do that in alphabetical order. So Mr. Dalman will go first with his opening remarks, and then Mr. Zitta will go first in his closing remarks. So Mr. Dalman, would you please start the forum with your opening remarks?
Try to figure the microphone situation out.
Yeah.
No, I'm sure you all can probably hear me okay. I've never been accused of being too quiet. I just want to start out by thanking the League of Women Voters and the Ottawa County Bar Association for putting this event together, to Ottawa County for hosting it tonight, to our attorneys who have come to see who the next probate judge is going to be, and especially to the citizens who took time out of your nights to come and get yourselves, as informed as you possibly can on the very important decision that you have this November. I also want to give a special thanks and congratulations to Judge Fyan. It has been a privilege and an honor to appear before you over my career and to watch how you do your job, how you do the job that both of us seek. for the way that you treat and handle the most vulnerable people in our society, our community. It truly has been an honor and a privilege, and I thank you on behalf of all of us for the service that you've provided to Ottawa County. It truly is an incredible opportunity that voters in Ottawa County have this fall to elect the next probate judge. To put it into context, when Judge Fyan was elected in 1988 is the last time we had a new probate judge. That was the year and the month that I was born. So for some of us, that truly is a once in a lifetime opportunity, at least to this point. But in addition to the things that were already mentioned about what the probate court does, the list is quite long, and I've kind of discovered over the course of campaigning this summer that a lot of people really don't know what happens there. It's a true unknown. It doesn't get the attention that the other courts do, and I think that's a shame because it really has a bigger and more direct impact on our communities than people really realize. That is where, guardianships and conservatorships take place. That is where the mental commitment proceedings take place. That is where estates are administered and trusts are supervised, and the litigation that ensues takes place there. But traditionally, that's also at least a portion of the abuse and neglect docket has happened in the probate court. The juvenile delinquency docket has happened in the probate court, and Judge Fyan started the Ottawa County Recovery Court. So you truly are dealing with the most vulnerable people in our community, and we need somebody that has the experience, the temperament, and the passion for working with those people to be the next Ottawa County probate judge. I'm going to get cut off very soon. I'm starting long-winded. So what I would say to open up, and we'll talk about it throughout the night, I'm a former Ottawa County prosecutor. I manage the juvenile delinquency docket. I handle mental commitment proceedings from the prosecutor's perspective. I'm now court appointed to handle the mental commitment proceedings and represent those individuals. I work with juveniles frequently. And I'm well versed at handling matters from both sides, which I think is important for a judicial candidate to possess those skills.
Mr. Zitta?
Thank you. Good evening, and I certainly appreciate everybody coming out tonight to attend this forum. And I would also like to echo the thanks to the League of Women Voters and to the Ottawa County Bar Association for putting this event on. We don't necessarily get that many opportunities to appear as candidates for a judgeship before the public and discuss not only our respective merits, but what the job is involved. And I would like to say thank you to Derek for highlighting some of the work that is done by the probate court, because education about that job, what happens in the court, is an important part of the job. Making the public aware that if you are in a situation where you need the assistance of the probate court, if you're within the jurisdiction, if there's a related matter, that's where you need to go and where you can get the kind of assistance that is available. I think we'll have a fair amount of conversation this evening about experience and just introducing myself very briefly in that area. I've been an attorney in private practice for almost 30 years. In terms of timing, when Judge Fyan took the bench, I was a freshman in college. So a little bit older, but at the same time, his long service is remarkable, and it's spanned my entire career. As that time has gone on, I've spent increasing amounts of time working in the probate area, handling matters of all types. And there are a lot of them, which we can certainly discuss in some detail. But that is what I do. I do a lot of it. And even though I don't like the way that this sounds, because it sounds a lot like bragging, I do it well. So I look forward to the opportunity to introduce myself further, to talk about what's happening in the probate court, how things could be improved in some ways, or how things that are good should be preserved. So look forward to the conversation. Thank you.
Well, thank you both. I'm going to start by giving you an opportunity to give us a little more information about your education and your background, and how specifically you think that would help you serve the community as a probate court judge. In short, how'd you be an asset to our community? You want to start with that, Mr. Dalman?
It comes back to me? Alrighty.
Yes.
Yes, well, very happy that we're opening with that since I ran out of time in my opening statement. I am a lifelong West Michigan resident. I grew up in a small town, Vicksburg, that's outside of Kalamazoo. A lot of people don't know it, so I say Kalamazoo usually. I graduated from Cooley Law School. I then began my career in the prosecutor's office here in Ottawa County, handling the matters that I discussed briefly in my opening. I then transitioned to a career at Cunningham Dalman here in Holland, where I'm a litigator and deputy city attorney. I handle a wide range of matters between those two roles. I'm a criminal defense attorney, I'm a civil litigator, I'm a probate litigator, I'm court appointed to handle the mental commitment hearings. The list goes on and on. There are very few areas I haven't touched in over my time there. As a city attorney, I do ordinance prosecution, I do tax appeals, the zoning board of appeals, work alongside law enforcement. So that experience is twofold, two ways. But what I think really sets me apart is outside of work, I spend my time volunteering with the very groups that appear before the probate court. So when I talk about passion, I have it inside and outside of my job. I'm a youth sports coach. I'm missing team photos tonight. I was discussing that with one of you earlier because I wanted to be here with you guys. I volunteer with a group that takes youth and young adults who have disabilities and illness on hunting and fishing trips to empower them, and veterans as well, usually disabled veterans. So I spend my time working with the very vulnerable populations that are subject to the probate court's jurisdiction.
Talking a little bit about background, I am a West Michigan native, grew up in the Grand Haven area, graduated from Grand Haven High School, got my undergraduate degree at the University of Michigan, then went to Minnesota for my law degree, and I also picked up an MBA along the way. Once I passed the bar exam, I practiced in Minnesota for 5 years before the stars aligned, and I was able to come back to Grand Haven and joined Shirley and Zitta, where I've been a partner since 2001, beginning of the year. It's coming up on 25 years back in Grand Haven, and during that time, I've worn a lot of hats. When I asked what I do, I've always said I'm a general practitioner because that's the best description I could come up with what I do, for what I do, and that covers a lot of ground. And I think that experience is helpful because it also informs and applies to what I do in the probate court. The world of probate sometimes seems kind of insular, and again, this is something we'll talk about on a later question, but you have to draw upon that general experience in other areas, whether it be real estate or dealing with Social Security or civil litigation. Having experience in those areas makes a difference in the world of probate. And so hopefully we'll have some time to get into some additional information. Thank you.
Mr. Zitta, you can hang on to that microphone because you're going to get the first opportunity to answer the next question. In your view, what are the priority issues that are facing the Ottawa County community and this court in particular? And how would you address them if you were elected to this position?
I would say that the issues that are of importance that apply directly to the probate court are issues of access and education. The practice of law in the probate court has changed a great deal in the time that I've been an attorney. When we had the pandemic, the courts adopted a lot of technology, conducting hearings by video, things that really hadn't been done to any great extent in the past, and that appears likely to continue indefinitely into the future. That's one way the courts can be more accessible to the public. And I think that that's going to be a continuing emphasis. How can we increase the ability of the public to access the resources that they need to have their matter heard? Use of forms, use of instructions to the extent that those can be given without giving legal advice contrary to the court rules. Educating the public about what can be done through the probate court and how to do it is probably the biggest thing in my mind.
Go ahead, Mr. Dalman.
Sure. So I think it goes back to what we've kind of been discussing with the probate court really kind of being the community court. So I think I can think of a few issues offhand which are really countywide, statewide, nationwide, probably worldwide issues that are directly involved in probate proceedings. We have our largest generation ever is obviously aging, which is going to take a great deal of the court's time and resources to deal with the administration of those estates and any litigation that might ensue. And obviously, the more people you have getting older, the more lawsuits there are going to be about their assets, when their time comes, unfortunately. The ongoing mental health crisis, which has been exacerbated, I think we can all agree on, by the pandemic and the years following, again, is a massive part of the probate court's docket. It takes a lot of time and money in both the court and the community, and I think being able to provide more resources to CMH and other county organizations and nonprofits is crucial to helping to fix that problem. And the ongoing addiction pandemic that we're having within our society. West Michigan, Ottawa County are not immune from that. And again, the recovery court being a facet of the probate court, we need to have the resources and the time and the disposition to be able to help those individuals overcome that addiction and in turn help the community as a whole get healthy. I was done before it went on.
Well done.
All right.
Mr. Dalman, you can hang on to that mic because you get the first opportunity to answer the next question. Could you describe for us your general judicial philosophy and your approach to fostering civility in the courtroom?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think job number one for a judge is to be a good listener. It is your job to hear what each party has to say, to view what they're presenting to you and apply it to the law of the state. So that obviously I think is judicial philosophy number one, and I try to be a good listener in life in general. I don't think that just applies to the bench. You don't get much accomplished if you don't listen to what other people have to say. In addition to that, it's having a balanced demeanor and balanced experience, which I've emphasized a few times now, being able to view matters from both sides impartially and fairly and apply them to the law at hand. Just treating everybody that comes before you with respect, with, again, the groups that are within the probate court. A lot of them might not really understand what's going on around them. My clients who are subject to mental health treatment orders very rarely have a full understanding of what's happening. Being able to communicate with them effectively, hear those concerns, and try to convey what's in their best interest to them is very important. So taking the time, giving everybody the respect they deserve, and listening to everybody that's there, definitely I think are key to any judicial philosophy.
Great, thank you. Mr. Zitta?
It's always an interesting experience describing a judicial philosophy when one is not a judge. And so this is, I guess, anticipatory more than anything else. But I think that it is of critical importance that any person coming before the probate court is treated with respect and that they are given every opportunity to be heard. It is not always the case where the persons coming before the court take advantage of that opportunity, but that opportunity needs to be extended to them. People who appear before the probate court in particular are facing something difficult in their life, whether it's a mental health crisis, whether it's a family member who needs a decision maker to handle an urgent situation, whether somebody passed away. You don't always get people at their best under those circumstances, and so it is my belief that the best and most important thing that a judge can do for those persons is to listen to them, give them the opportunity to be heard, and treat them with kindness, courtesy, and respect.
Thank you. You can hang on to that mic. The probate court in Ottawa County hears more civil commitments and estate and trust matters than guardianships and conservatorship matters. What percentage of your current private practice involves each of those areas? Can you estimate for us?
I probably can. I would say that if you broke down what I do, in general, probate practice is probably about 70% at this point. 30% is outside the probate court and is beyond the scope, I guess, of the question. Within the 70% that is probate, a relatively small percentage of that, I would say 5% or less, is the mental civil commitment hearings. That in part is a function of where I'm located in Grand Haven, which is not nearby any of the hospitals that serve that population. So I do handle some of those cases, but it's not as frequent. My own areas of practice focus more on the guardianship and conservatorship side, where I would say probably at least 30% of my practice involves representing persons in those types of matters. And then the balance is in the probate field, and that covers kind of the whole waterfront. It includes administering estates, administering trusts, dealing with probate litigation, will contests, trust disputes, anything that might need the probate court to make a decision.
Thank you. Mr. Dalman?
Could you repeat the question, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
The probate court in Ottawa County hears more civil commitments and estate and trust matters than guardianships and conservatorship matters. What percentage of your current private practice involves each of these areas?
Sure. So that fluctuates greatly for me in my practice. Right now, I'm involved in several probate litigation matters throughout West Michigan. The estates and trust matters that were mentioned, those tend to take a good bit of time, especially depending on the dispositions of the parties that are involved, sort of the circumstances that surround it, to a certain extent the size of the asset pool that we're talking about. In my experience personally, the smaller estates, smaller trusts tend to be the most contentious. Which I think often is the same way with divorces, but it really does ebb and flow. Right now I have, I think, only one mental commitment that I'm appointed to. I had one last week, I had one the week before that. So sometimes we'll get a half dozen or more a week, sometimes we have one or two at a time. You're not typically attached to those files quite as long as you are the other ones, but litigation has a way of hanging on for a while, which is one of the things I want to hopefully talk about a little bit on later tonight.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Dalman, if you're elected, what are your plans for your existing caseload?
I'll have to say goodbye to it. So my goal, and really what I've tried to do without looking too far into the future, is I've sort of taken a position right now where I don't want to start fires that I can't put out myself, because I think I owe that to my clients. They came for me, and I want to be the one that sees the matter through if it's at all possible. That being said, people still have issues that they need help with, and I love helping people with their issues. So I will take new clients on under the understanding that they know I may not be around to see them through. But right now it's trying to wind those up as much as I possibly can, or to get them into a position where somebody else at my firm is able to take them over for me. Fortunately, I work at a rather large firm, especially for this area, so we very much have a team mentality, and I'm very much a team type of guy. So often we'll have more than one attorney working on a file to begin with, so there's already somebody who's well-versed and qualified to help get it across the finish line if need be. And that's kind of what I'm doing right now.
Thank you. Mr. Zitta?
Winding up a practice is a pretty daunting prospect, especially when you've been doing it for a long time. I also have the good fortune to be with a firm. I get a great deal of support there, both in terms of my partner and our amazing staff. And so I would lean on them pretty heavily to assist me in winding up anything that could be wound up before January 1. That being said, that isn't going to cover the entire waterfront, and so I would be spending a chunk of my time between now and January finding attorneys to step in for me on matters that can't be handled by my firm. Just as an example, I have a civil litigation matter that's in Wexford County up in Cadillac. I can't saddle somebody local with that. That's something I took on. And if that isn't done by the end of the year, then I'm going to have to find somebody appropriate up that way. And I owe that to my clients, to find somebody who's experienced, professional, knowledgeable, and will treat them right. So that's a part of the deal, is if I have to find somebody, that's what I'm going to do. Thank you.
Mr. Zitta, do judges have an obligation, in your opinion, to improve public understanding of the courts? And if so, how would you carry out that obligation?
I would say absolutely. There is no doubt in my mind that the judiciary has a responsibility to educate the public, not only about what the courts do, but how they operate. In terms of how I would foresee carrying out that responsibility, I think Judge Fine is somebody that I would like to emulate. I know that appearance at different public functions where you are there as the sitting probate judge and can provide information about how things operate. You know, it's probably a profession-specific example, but every year the Ottawa County Bar Association puts on a bench bar meeting where the judges meet with all the attorneys, or at least they invite all the attorneys who practice in Ottawa County, and it's a chance to provide some of that education about how things operate, issues in the court system. But even going beyond the professional arena, that's something that can be applied to public situations as well, and that's something that I would be definitely interested in doing.
Mr. Dalman?
Thank you. I would absolutely agree with Mike. Any public official, especially an elected official, I think has a duty to inform the public about the job that you're doing, how it performs, what it's about. You sign up for that when you ask to be elected to that position, in my opinion. The way that I would do that is much the way that I already do that, talking through about the volunteer activities that I'm involved in. I already talk about my job. Kids, now it's, hey, vote for coach anytime we're at practice, but that's a fun one. But it's that conversation starter that leads to the deeper conversation about, hey, well, what is that job that you're seeking? What do you do there? How does it go with them, with their parents, with the kids on the hunting and fishing trips that I talked about? I love going out and meeting new people and having those conversations about what it is that I do and hearing what they do. But especially when you're in the public sphere, the community needs to know what's happening within their community, what you're doing to make it a better place, what you're doing to better their lives and the lives of their neighbors, their friends, their family, how you're taking care of this job that you were gifted. So I do think that's critical. I actually look forward to that part of it if I'm fortunate enough to find myself there.
Thanks. Mr. Dalman, some estates have complicated financial issues, businesses, and contentious parties. How would you address these difficult issues when they involve areas that might not be in your area of expertise?
So I mentioned having pending or ongoing probate litigation matters right now. There's one that I'm involved in and have been for about 2 years now, which has all of those boxes that you just mentioned checked. It's a multi-million-dollar estate. It's siblings that live all across the country, and they do not particularly care for each other. There's actually assets in other countries. So it kind of melds everything that you just said into one experience, and I'm living it right now. The way that you handle it, the way that I handle it, the way I try to handle every case that I have, and how I think I would handle these types of cases from the bench is you have to be the calming presence. You have to be the one that brings the temperature down. You have to be the one that's willing to give difficult news, difficult advice, difficult rulings potentially, but in a manner where everybody feels like they matter in what's going on, and that you're giving everything the due attention that it deserves. So it's really a continuation of how I already go about my practice with dealing with everybody with respect, whether they're showing the same to you or not. And I've seen it, from the sidelines as a litigator. I've seen that not everybody gives judges the respect that they deserve, or the other parties in the room. But But you have to be able to look past that and to keep the ship on the right course.
Thank you. Mr. Zitta?
Would you repeat the question for me, please?
Some states have complicated financial issues, businesses, and contentious parties. How would you address these difficult issues when they involve areas that are not in your area of expertise?
Well, I think there really are two different pieces to that question. One deals with the question of unfamiliar areas or expertise. I'm just going to mention that I do have some particular expertise in some of the issues that might be seen as particularly difficult. I do have an MBA, a business background. When I first started practicing, I was a tax lawyer, and so I have experience with some of these issues that pop up in complicated, contentious estate and trust matters. The other piece of the question, though, is just how do you deal with the people? How do you manage a situation that has perhaps a lot of emotion or a lot of complexities? And the answer to that is you have to treat people with respect. You're not always going to get it back, but you have to do that. And it's something that I'm not sure there's a one-size-fits-all solution as to how you would handle every case, because people are going to approach things differently. But as long as you come at it from a position where I'm going to respect what you have to say, you're going to be heard, and I might say something or might reach a decision you don't like, but you'll know why. So hearing things out and treating people appropriately is how I would address that.
Thank you, Mr. Zitta. And you have the next question. Sometimes matters before the court can be traumatic for both you and for your staff. How would you address those situations?
Well, that is a question where I would say, fortunately, it's not something that I have experienced a great deal of personally. There is no doubt that matters in any court can be very emotional. It can affect people at a highly personal level, but I'm not sure that I've had a lot of experience with a case that got to the point of trauma, at least for myself or my staff. I certainly think that you have to be aware of how things are affecting your clients when you are dealing with something that is that serious, but I'm not sure that I've answered that question particularly well. But that's the best I'm going to do.
Want to take a crack at that one, Mr. Dalman?
Yeah, I don't know if "want's" the right word, but yes. So unfortunately, I have had those experiences with very traumatic cases, and that comes from my time as a prosecutor. And even before that, Michigan has a court rule that allows law students to essentially practice law in a prosecutor's office or in the attorney general's office before they're admitted to practice law. I, as part of that, was an intern, for lack of a better term, in Jackson County. I handled my own docket. I worked on a lot of cases. They also allowed me to participate in some murder cases. You don't forget the first autopsy photos you've ever seen. You don't forget photos of deceased children, third-degree burns on a few months old infant. Those stick with you, and especially at that point in my life, having a child of my own that was about the same age, I to this day can close my eyes and see those photos. So there are certainly cases which are traumatic, which you don't get rid of. How you deal with it is you talk to people about it. We're part of what one of us is going to be asked to do is manage the mental health docket, and that requires counseling. That requires talking about these things, and I would certainly hope and promote within my staff the ability to do that with me as well. I do it now. I'm an open door. I'm an open book. If you want to talk about something, let's talk about it. Let's figure out how we get past it. We all need to be healthy and happy in order to do this job properly for the people before us.
Thank you. Often parties appear before the court, and in my personal experience, I would say increasingly, who are representing themselves. How would you expect to handle matters before the court for individuals that appear before you who don't have legal representation?
So same type of thing. Again, as a prosecutor, both for the county and now for the city of Holland, and sometimes civil litigation as well. I'm working with pro-per individuals all the time, and communicating to those individuals in a manner that they understand is critical to being able to do my job. We're adversaries in whatever matter we're there for. I can't give advice, but I need to be able to tell you where I'm coming from. And again, I need to listen to you as to where you're coming from, because that's the only way we're going to get through this in a manner that makes sense for either party involved. So it is a difficult task at times to work with individuals who don't necessarily understand the rules that we're playing by. But you have to tell them about that. You have to talk to them about, hey, this is what you need to do. This is what you need to file. I've more than once asked judges to appoint attorneys to individuals who initially really didn't want it, but seeing that they really didn't understand what we were dealing with, I feel that that's my obligation, even as an adversary, to make sure that we're on as even of a playing field as possible. So in the judicial role, it's listening to those folks, it's communicating to them what's in their best interest, and making sure that everybody understands sort of the standards that we're operating under.
I think an important piece of this for the judge is to make sure that the individuals who are representing themselves are aware of the different resources that are out there to assist them if needed. There are certainly going to be types of matters where that assistance isn't needed. If somebody comes before the court on a simple name change, that might be something that's commonly handled without the assistance of a lawyer, and there probably isn't going to be much difficulty in addressing that situation, at least in a lot of cases. On the other hand, if you've got somebody who has a litigation matter, especially a contested one, that's going to be one where a self-represented litigant is going to be at a significant disadvantage. And so they need to be advised, this is what's out here that you could take advantage of. You can talk to the Legal Self-Help Center that's offered here in Ottawa County. You can consult with legal aid. You can call the state bar and see if you might qualify for the modest means program for more affordable attorneys. These are the things that you seriously should think about before we proceed. And in addition to that education, you want to give a self-represented litigant the opportunity to take advantage of those resources, as opposed to putting them on the spot and saying, no, we're proceeding today.
Thank you. Mr. Zitta, if you observed a party in your courtroom being poorly represented by an unprepared or ineffective attorney, how would you handle that situation?
Well, I would say, first of all, that's a situation that I would not expect to come up, at least not here in Ottawa County. It's been my experience over many years that attorneys here are prepared, are experienced, are knowledgeable, and are not going to put the court in that situation. That said, in our hypothetical example here, the way that I would handle that is I would want to have a conversation with the attorneys in chambers off the record to say, essentially, here's what I'm seeing, and if there's a reason for it, where there might be an adjournment that would be appropriate, I need to know about that. If there's something else going on, I would like to know about that. So if proceeding today under these circumstances isn't the right thing, we know why. Every situation is going to be a little bit different in that regard, but it is certainly something that I would be paying attention to.
Thank you. Mr. Dalman?
Thank you. I agree with much of what Mike said there. All the attorneys present in the room know that there are a lot of potential ethical pitfalls in that scenario, about conversations that you could have with who, when, and under what circumstances. So certainly you would need to be very careful about how you approached that situation and had those conversations. But I think it's exactly right. We owe it to more so the attorney, or I'm sorry, more than the attorneys, the litigants that are in our courtrooms, especially the ones who have hired that attorney to represent them, to make sure that they get their fair shake. And while it's not our job to oversee who they hire or who they don't, if we're noticing something unusual or off with one of the litigators, I think we need to have a conference about that and discuss it and try to find out what's going on. Is it truly just a lack of preparation, or is it something deeper that we need to try to take care of and you know, push the pause button for a second? And I think that's really the only way to go about it. But I would also second that in Ottawa County, that would be a very surprising scenario, at least from our local bar. I've never seen that in practice, and I would be very surprised to see it from the bench here.
Thank you. Are there any specific types of cases which you would find it necessary to disqualify or recuse yourself?
Outside of cases that I'm currently handling, after I take the bench or have worked on within my firm that might come before me, it's hard to see that scenario playing out. Certainly if there's any cases that I've had direct involvement in, I would recuse myself. I believe within this profession, especially with our local bar, that a lot of us would consider ourselves very good friends. So I don't think that in and of itself is a reason to recuse myself from any case that I can think of, or involving any individual that I can think of. There is the potential in the probate court that juvenile delinquency matters may continue to get held there. So being the father of two boys who are just about to the age where they might find themselves under the court's jurisdiction there, you know, I guess that would be a possibility. I sure hope that's never the case, but if that were the situation, obviously I would have to pass that off to somebody else. But no, I mean, I can't think of any direct examples which would require me to step aside from those I've had direct involvement with.
Thank you.
I think my answer is going to be a lot like what Derek just had to say. You know, there are certainly cases where recusal is appropriate. If for some reason, as a judge, you believe that you cannot be fair to the litigants, or you have some direct personal connection that would impair your ability to be fair and impartial, then absolutely that's a possibility. It's inevitable that there would be some cases where I have been involved enough, have enough of an opinion, or would be found to be biased by one party or the other, that it would be entirely inappropriate for me to continue on that file. In those cases, yes, I would recuse myself. But as a general rule, no, there is no type of case or particular subset of cases that I would say recusal would be appropriate or necessary. It's just going to be a relatively small number of cases involving situations where it doesn't make sense for me to continue.
Thank you. Should you ascend to the bench, Mr. Zitta, at the probate court, you're going to be supervising 6 clerk registrars and be responsible for the administration of the court. How many staff do you currently supervise or employ in your practice? And can you discuss your management style and the skills you've developed in this area?
Certainly. The firm that I work for, there are 2 attorneys, and we have a staff that consists of 2 full-time legal assistants, an office manager, and a part-time receptionist. So I guess I would say we have 4 regular employees that also get supplemented during the summer periodically by a student intern or something like that. But that's typically what we're looking at, about 4 employees. And the way that we operate our firm is our staff, our family. And you know, we make a significant effort to invest in our people to make sure that they have the opportunity to grow in their position or even into another position if that's a goal that they have, that they are compensated appropriately for their work, that they receive, that they are given reasonable quantities of work without being overloaded. That can be a constant challenge to try and manage the workload, but it's important to look after the welfare of the people that look after you, because without our employees, our work doesn't get done and our clients are not happy. So that's how I would manage staff, working for the court as well. You have to treat people appropriately. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dalman?
Thank you. I've already touched on it a little bit, both in the size of the firm that I work at and in my philosophy regarding the people that I work with. Cunningham, Dalman, I was trying to kind of think about it very quickly as we were going through that. I think we're probably crowding 50 employees there. That includes attorneys, one of which I would say I supervise. I always have my full-time legal assistant as well as the legal assistant for the city of Holland work. So there's usually, I would say, 2 people who I'm working with directly throughout the course of the day, every day. And then we have a litigation paralegal who I frequently work with. We have a real estate paralegal who I frequently work with, a probate paralegal who I frequently work with. So in some ways, a very similar size staff that I have direct involvement with at any given time, and if one of them's gone, then there's always somebody else to help out. But as I already said, I'm very much a team type of guy. If there's an issue with one of our teammates, I need to know what's going on. I want to know what's going on, because then we can move forward from whatever's going on. And that's the way, to me, that you need to run a business. There's no superiors, there's no inferiors, there's a team, and we're only as strong, as whoever may be struggling. So let's get on the same page, let's sort it out, and let's figure out how we move forward.
Thank you. In your experience, what have you observed to be the most effective methods for improving court procedures and efficiencies? Are there other methods you would suggest?
So this goes back to something Mike said too. It's a little bit of a difficult question to answer when you haven't been involved in the decision-making process of increasing efficiency of court proceedings. I've certainly seen things that have worked and have not worked. There's kind of a mixed review on the use of video technology in court proceedings. In some ways, the probate court was a bit of a trendsetter there for the mental commitment proceedings for the individuals who are hospitalized. Those have been video conference, video hearings for as long as I've been involved in those matters. For good reason. That person's hospitalized and receiving treatment, they should stay there, and it's efficient to do that. I'm a pretty big proponent of that in most regards, especially in probate litigation where you've got litigants or interested parties who live all around the country. It really doesn't make sense to ask them come in to this county for relatively short proceedings. That changes based on the nature of what it is. If it's an evidentiary hearing, if it's a trial, obviously that changes. And I would like to promote that and continue to use that technology, potentially even advance it. But again, I think the way that you promote court efficiency is talk to the people who are receiving notices, giving notices, handling the filings. What can we do differently? What can we do better? The staff that's been there to this point would be relied upon by me if I were there.
The probate court has really been a leader in a lot of ways in addressing issues of efficiency. One of the areas is electronic filing of documents. The probate court was one of the first courts in the state of Michigan to go to a full electronic filing system. And that process was not without hiccups, and it's still not without hiccups. And it's something that really offers immense potential, but is going to need some continual refinement in order to make it something that is accessible to the public, understandable by the public, and convenient for the public. That's the most important improvement that can be made, is to continue the work of the court that's already taking place to make things accessible, convenient, and efficient. I'm just giving you one example there, but there are others. The court also has, for many years, offered form packets for individuals who want to represent themselves with instructions, at least to the extent that those instructions can be given. There is the use of video for routine hearings so that people can appear remotely. That has been a tremendous boon to people who have jobs or other commitments and can't necessarily make it out to West Olive for a court hearing. So there are areas where a lot has happened, but it can always be improved.
Okay, so long as we're talking about technology, how about this one? Have you used any of the new available AI tools? And do you have any thoughts about their future or potential impact in courtrooms?
The answer to that, first part is no, I have not. I have resisted the temptation to experience the AI tools, I guess with one exception. I guess I used an AI tool to generate it would create an entire song for you, music, lyrics, everything. And then I just did that as a novelty. It was quite interesting. But as it relates to the legal field, no, I have not. I don't think that the technology is there yet to the point where it can be relied on sufficiently to give you accurate information. There is still a lot of fine-tuning to be done, especially in an area as technically complex as the law. We may get there, we may not. I guess I can't necessarily predict that. But it is going to be something that people lean on to at least try and improve productivity. And I can foresee it being useful for that, but at the end of the day, it's still going to be the responsibility of a lawyer or a judge to do their own work, to do their own fact-checking, to make sure that the work product is accurate.
I just want to start off by saying I would like to hear the song that you had. I actually have, and I did today, use AI technology in working on drafting a legal opinion for the city of Holland on a matter that we previously addressed several years ago. I would be lying to all of you if I said it didn't scare me a little bit. I am not the most tech-savvy guy in the world, very, very admittedly, and the capabilities of AI are something that I am not very comfortable with. Maybe I watch too many movies, I don't know, but as Mike indicated, it's not a replacement for the feel of or experience of an attorney, of a judge, but it certainly can and does increase efficiency. You type in a question, it pops out an answer. It may be the right answer, it may be not the right answer. You can't just run with it and see what happens. You've got to then fly spec it. The case may or may not still be good law. It just finds a case and says, yes, that's the answer to your question. Well, it may have been 30 years ago, it's not now. So it certainly at this point does not replace the feel, the personal touch, the human touch for this profession. I hope we never get there, or several of us in this room are going to be looking for employment, but it is a tool that I think many courts are going to turn to. Many courts already are, and so are the lawyers.
Thank you. As candidates, have you signed any agreements with groups, organizations, or individuals vowing to adhere to the group or individual's priorities? If so, could you tell us about the nature of these agreements?
I have not signed, would not sign, cannot sign as a judicial candidate any such agreement. I'm pretty sure I know what you're referring to, and that's a no for me. I've taken multiple oaths to uphold the Constitution of the United States and the state of Michigan, and besides my vows to my wife, that is the end of the oaths that I have taken and intend to.
Thank you.
I think this question could be answered with one word, and that one word is no. But I'm going to give a little bit longer answer to that. I am not affiliated with, nor would I be affiliated with, any of the interest groups on either end of the spectrum or anywhere in between. That's simply not appropriate for a judge. Being a judge is a non-partisan position. You're expected to treat everybody fairly, to not be biased, and if you sign a contract or adhere to the values of any particular organization, no matter what part of the spectrum that organization is on, you're compromised. And so the answer is no.
Thank you. For the past 20 years, the Ottawa County Probate Court and the 20th Circuit Court have successfully managed finances, staffing, facilities, workload, and strategic planning as a cooperative venture. For example, the Ottawa County Probate Judge has used available court time to assist the 20th Circuit Court by handling juvenile cases, recovery court cases, etc. Do you anticipate continuing this collaboration with the Circuit Court to even out the workload and promote efficiency in court administration? And one other question, do you have any experience in the field of recovery?
The answer in all respects is absolutely yes. I do anticipate that there has recently been and there will be some reshuffling of responsibilities among the judges. We have a number of circuit court judges here in Ottawa County, and there's only one probate judge, but the two courts and the judges have come together over the years and allocated work so that no particular judge has too heavy of a caseload. In his time on the bench, Judge Fine has handled domestic cases. He got out of that. He has handled juvenile delinquency, neglect and abuse cases. That's likely to change again with the family division being out in West Olive and the probate court no longer going to be out there. So that process is ongoing, but absolutely I would anticipate that it will continue. The probate judge will take on certain responsibilities. It would certainly be my hope that that would include the recovery court, which is currently in existence. It would be my hope that it includes other areas such as adoptions that are quite related to the work that's done already in the probate court. It does certainly foster efficiency, and also it just makes sense to do it that way. So yes, I do see that continuing.
Thank you. Mr. Dalman?
Thank you. I haven't been very shy about my desire to work with children. So on the topic of juvenile delinquency in particular, absolutely, I want to continue that relationship. It would frankly disappoint me if I wasn't able to continue to do that if I'm privileged enough to be elected. I think it's critical to become involved in these kids' lives as early as possible. Many of which come from not great home environments, to show them what stability looks like, to teach them that there's somebody there in their corner. As a coach, as a father of kids that age, that is my everyday, and I would love the opportunity to continue to do that from the bench in a different role. With the recovery court, very similar scenario. Again, as a prosecutor and as a defense attorney, I've referred folks to that program. I've talked to the individuals who are involved in how that program is administered. I'm very passionate about promoting recovery in our community. I'm sure everybody in this room has their own recovery story or addiction story, either personally or with family or friends. We all wish we could have gotten people that we've known and loved into that program, and to be part of that journey for those people, to provide them with the resources, but also to hold them accountable for not accepting those resources is something that I very much want to be a part of and look forward to if given the opportunity.
Thank you. The probate court staff are hardworking, well-trained individuals who provide direct services to the people of Ottawa County. As the probate court judge, what would you do to support the staff individually and to support their professional development?
Absolutely. Much of what I've already talked about. If there's something that anybody has an idea on, I want to know about it. Because that's the only way that we can put those ideas into action. And again, both of us work with the probate staff regularly. It is a great staff. It's been a great staff, and it will continue to be a great staff. And in many ways, even though we both know the areas of the law that we'd be going into, we would have to lean on that staff to teach us some of the ins and outs. That's just the nature of what we're stepping into here. So I guess to answer the question more directly, I would want to have discussions probably individually with those staff members when I got there to see what ideas were on improving communications and the ability to provide resources to the community, and what we could do to make life easier and better for all of them. What all that might entail is yet to be seen, because I'm not there and able to make those decisions or have that insight just yet. So I want to let everybody there know that it's not so much a captain of a ship mentality. It's maybe a captain of a team, and we're all there working together, and I need to know what to do as part of my job to help you maximize your job as well.
I'm glad that the question had some appropriate descriptive words in it, because the probate court really does have an amazing team. The register, her deputies, the clerks, they really do a nice job, and they do a lot of work on a daily basis. And that leads me to one thing that I would certainly want to be, and that is to be an advocate for them when it comes to securing adequate resources to allow them to do their jobs in the best way possible. Ottawa County has grown a great deal in the last 20 years, and the caseload of the probate court has grown accordingly. The number of filings of probate matters, guardianships, mental commitment hearings just continues to go up and up, and the court's going to need resources to deal with that. Our court administrator is somebody that I would go to work on that subject. With her help, we might have to look to outside resources. But that's one of the most important things the judge could do to support the staff, is to make sure that they've got resources. Other than that, just having their back. The people that work for the probate court know the law, they're experienced at dealing with people, but sometimes they just need somebody to say, you're doing the right thing here. You know, I appreciate what you're doing to try and help people that are coming in. And so I put some emphasis on that.
Thank you. Under the Michigan Constitution, the probate court is part of Michigan's one court of justice. How do you plan to work collaboratively with the state courts, the Michigan Supreme Court, and the state court administrator's office?
Now, that is a particularly interesting question to ask two individuals who are not judges and have not been judges. And so I think my answer here is going to be a little bit speculative. But the short version is each of the parties listed in the question is a stakeholder in the justice system, and everybody, each of them has a role to play. The buck doesn't necessarily stop with the probate judge. The probate judge works with the administrative staff, the court administrator here, works with the state court administrator's office, works with all these different entities, the Supreme Court, to make sure that justice is being administered. So there's going to be communication there. It's going to be a two-way street, and I don't foresee that being a problem. It's something that is there essentially as an opportunity to improve the experience, to work with these different stakeholders to make sure the court is operating as efficiently as possible.
I second the notion that this is a very difficult question to answer as somebody who's never had the ear of anybody within the Supreme Court Administrator's Office on policy decisions to this point. But the probate court very much is a spoke in the wheel, as is the circuit court, as is the district court, as are the different administrative bodies within the county and state, and certainly the Supreme Court is part of that. There would be an expectation of communication between the local courts, the county as a whole, the county administrator, and scale. We all know that there are different policies implemented periodically. There are different forms that are chosen and elected, and certainly I would hope to have input into that and decisions that were being made as far as what local courts are being asked to do by the Supreme Court Administrator's Office. But as far as what exactly role we're going to have in that, that's going to require conversations with somebody who's currently on the bench and has had those conversations. And certainly I would hope to be able to have the opportunity to do that before taking the bench to be able to figure out some of these things that are foreign to those of us who haven't yet been there.
Thank you. The mission of the court is to, quote, administer justice and restore wholeness in a manner that inspires public trust. What would you do as probate court judge to ensure this mission is carried out?
You would You would foster open communications with the people who are before you in the courtroom, with the litigants, with the attorneys, and with the community at large. So this question actually wraps up a lot of the questions that we've had so far. You want to be transparent with the people that are before you so they know that you're not hiding anything from them. I don't really know what that would be offhand, but there is a common distrust with litigants, with the parties that represent them, with the judges. That's particularly common in the probate court with the mental health treatment respondents. More than once I've been told that I shouldn't be meeting with them with CMH workers, or that you're one of them, those types of things. And I know they feel that way about everybody who's involved in that process that's trying to get them the help that they need. So really, it goes back to all the things that we've talked about. You have to be a good listener. If you're a good listener and people feel heard, they're going to have trust in you and what you're doing and what you're there for. If you're respectful to those people, if you talk to everybody as if they're humans, as if they're the same, as if everybody's getting a fair opportunity, which they absolutely would and should, then it fosters the concepts that you mentioned and just promotes a greater relationship, a greater understanding between the courts and the people that find themselves under the court's jurisdiction.
Thank you.
Public trust is something that is earned, and it's earned on a day-to-day basis. It can certainly be lost just as quickly as it can be gained, but over the long term, it's something that has to be looked at as important each and every day. In order to gain that public trust, the court has to provide service to the people that come before it in a manner that is courteous, fair, kind, considerate, all these words. You cannot engender public trust with persons who feel they're being treated unfairly or unkindly or abruptly or anything like that. So the way to engender public trust in an institution like the probate court is just every single day do it the right way. And that starts at the top, but it includes everybody that works for the court. You have to create foster an environment where that is the expectation, and that we live those values each and every day, that we treat the public the way that they should be treated.
Well, that was a question about the mission of the court. The last question I have to ask you for the evening before we move to closing statements has to do with the values of the Ottawa County Court. The core values of the Ottawa County Court are freedom, equality, trust, and justice. How would you intend to incorporate these values into the probate court?
I would say that in large part, I would just echo the answer I gave to the previous question. In order to incorporate those values into the user experience of the probate court, you simply have to conduct things the right way. You have to have a culture where people are treated with consideration. And I think by doing that, you accomplish these objectives. I don't know that it needs to be any more complicated than that. Treat people right, do things the right way, good results will follow.
I think that the importance in answering those questions is really understanding the significance of each one of those four words. Those are core concepts, not only to what happens within the court, but what happens within our country, our society. Freedom is something that is at stake for multiple people that come within the probate court's jurisdiction. Maybe not to the same degree as what happens in the circuit court, but the mental health respondents, their freedom is at stake. The juveniles, their freedom is at stake. It certainly is a big part of what happens there, and being able to give that decision on whether or not to limit somebody's freedom the appropriate weight that it deserves is critical. And that goes back to my experience as both the prosecutor and the defense attorney. I've taken that freedom. I've preserved that freedom. I know how heavy that is. Standing next to somebody that's about to be deprived of it for years is a heavy feeling. whether it's what's deserved or not. It's a heavy situation. Equality, treating everybody fairly, respectfully, making sure that everybody is treated the same, everybody is given a fair opportunity. That then builds the trust that we talked about. And all of those are necessary to provide justice to the litigants that are under your jurisdiction, that are in front of you, that you're responsible for deciding the outcome of whatever it is that they came to you for.
Thank you. Well, that concludes the question portion of our forum. So, Mr. Zitta, if you would please address your closing comments to the audience.
Certainly. Thank you. I do again want to thank everybody for being present tonight, and thank the League of Women Voters and the Ottawa County Bar Association for putting this on. It's been a tremendous opportunity to get out before the public, have a conversation with you, with Derek, and to bring to light some of the answers to questions that people may have. I think that when we get down to it, this is a race where you have two candidates who get along well, who have professional respect for one another, and I think the county will be well served by whomever the public chooses to succeed Judge Fine. Obviously, I'm hoping that it is me, but if it is not, then I certainly respect that decision. The issues of probate are sometimes so obscure that people don't really think about it beyond the subject of somebody died and need to transfer their assets. Probate is about so much more than that. And we've had a chance to talk a little bit tonight about some of the different areas that it covers. And I was surprised to learn that there is an area of probate where I don't have experience. I've never been involved in a drainage appeal. So I hope to someday have that experience either on the bench or on the other side. But in terms of every other area of practice, both direct or ancillary, I feel that the experience that I've accumulated over the last 30 years would serve the county well. I do think that I have a lot to offer as your next probate judge, and I hope that I will get your consideration. Thank you.
I want to thank everybody again for coming up and for the thoughtful questions that were provided, and to the League of Women Voters and the Ottawa County Bar Association again for hosting us tonight. It really is a pleasure to sit here with so many of you face to face and share a good deal about myself and my background. And I also want to thank Mike. Hopefully I'm not giving up too much confidence here, but we met, I don't know, weekend one of both of us being part of this race and had coffee together, and truthfully I still owe him one because he paid that day, so I haven't forgotten about it. But he's absolutely right. Our backgrounds are different. Our desires, our ambitions might be a little different. The way we go about things is going to be different. But certainly Ottawa County voters are very fortunate in this race, I think, because there isn't a question that both candidates are very well qualified to do the job. So I second that opinion as well. And I just, it's been such an honor to this point to campaign in this county. We are so fortunate to live where we live and with the people we live here with. I've traveled from Chester County back down to Holland, and I'm from Olive Township, everywhere in between. It's been really a joy and an honor to go and meet so many people throughout this year and see the issues that every community thinks is important and hear what they have to say and the questions they have for me. And it really is an irreplaceable experience. I hope that I'm successful. I think that I could do many great things for the probate court for a long time to come, similar to the man who sits there now. I really hope that I'm given that opportunity, because I can't think of a greater honor than serving the populations that court serves and just making it a natural extension of what I love doing so much now. It's a different way, it's an expanded way to leave a lasting mark on this community, and I hope that I'm provided that opportunity. But thank you all again so much for coming.
Well, I'd like to thank both of the candidates for an outstandingly intelligent, thoughtful, civil conversation about important, very important issues. On behalf of the League of Women Voters and all of the audience here, we'd like to give you a round of applause and wish you the best. Now I'd like to introduce Barb Ferguson, who is the current president of the League of Women Voters in the Holland area, and she's got some closing remarks and some important reminders for you. Maybe
We switched roles.
Oh,
I'm back.
I'm sorry. That's not Barb.
Just some housekeeping items that I think all of you would appreciate knowing. The League of Women Voters participates with Vote411.org, and that most candidates all candidates are given questionnaires with questions concerning the race they're running in. And there are questions, I believe, I didn't double check before I left, that you answered questions that are on the website. So if you still want more information, for those of you who need more information to decide, please go to vote411.org. And if you put in your address, you can see all your candidates and all their positions. A reminder that this forum will be available on our website, probably the bar's website as well, and the candidates' website. So if there are a lot of voters who are not here tonight, hopefully we will have a lot of voters on November 5, but that is available as well. Most important to remember is that we vote on Tuesday, November 5, at your precinct. But prior to that, there are two other options for voting. All voters have the option to vote absentee ballots. They will be mailed out September 26th, so they probably will arrive in your mailbox a couple of days after that date. The ballots will be, and early voting begins Saturday, October 26th. Early voting is four sites within the county. They have specific hours that they're open. And they close on Sunday before the election. I believe that's November 3rd. There's no voting on November 4th, the Monday, because they need to get their equipment and set up for the precincts. So there's plenty of opportunities to vote coming up. And talk to people, please, and ask them to vote, to think about it. And Vote411 has information on all the candidates from within the state, all the unusual University of Michigan trustees, Wayne State trustees, all candidates were given questions. So for those of more obscure races where we don't have interaction with the candidates, it's a good source to actually make an educated decision as you cast your ballot. We also have more information on our website, all the rules regarding voting, registration. Please encourage your friends and family and neighbors to register if they're not registered and to exercise their right to vote. Again, thank you for listening. And another round of applause for the candidates. They were thrilled for knowing. We appreciate that, and thank you for attending. Have a good evening.
If I might say, there's a very amusing, ancient YouTube video called Walk and Talk the Vote for a previous Supreme Court candidate that reminds people to look for the non-partisan section of the ballot. It was for a Supreme Court candidate, I forget who, anybody can remember who it was? Yes. Her sister was on the West Wing, and it was the cast of the West Wing that did it. So it's amusing. It helps people remember to look for the nonpartisan section of the ballot, which both of these gentlemen are on.
It's easy to overlook.
And if you see it once, you'll never forget it. Walk and talk the vote.
Thank you. The candidates do have information at their tables and back. So if you have more questions or want to shake their hand and ask them more something specific, they said they'd entertain that.